My name's Andy Mangels, and I have been a professional writer for 40 years now. I've written about 40 books now, 3 bestsellers, written comic books, I've written magazine articles, I've worked on Star Wars projects, Star Trek project, X-Files, Wonder Woman, the X-Men. I've written all over the map. I chose writing as a career almost by accident. In the process of going to college, I discovered that I was actually a much better verbal and textual storyteller than I was an artistic storyteller. I had a goal, which was to work in comics, but instead of working in comics as an artist, I started working in comics as a writer. My first work was in 1985, and it was in a book about a comic book artist. And that then led to me writing for magazines, and then comic books, and then books and trading cards and all the things that I've done in the years since. A lot of people ask me, where do you get your ideas from? Or how do you create? And what's funny is that everything that I create is a reflection of something around me. I was working with somebody once, and they had a National Geographic on their table that had an article about this fungus called the cordyceps fungus. I looked at that, and I saw this article that was just like zombie fungus in South America, and I was like, okay, this looks interesting. That ended up being an X-Files story that I wrote. What's funny is that that's what the Last of Us video game and TV show are based on, is that same South American fungus that creates zombie insects. They just took it and said, well, it'll create zombie people too. That's how you take ideas from the world around you and say, okay, what if? How does this work into being creative? When you're working with licensed properties, your ideas are based on those licensed properties to begin with. I've written a lot of that type of stuff. My most famous Star Wars story was Boba Fett, Twin Engines of Destruction, and that story inspired the Mandalorian TV show. And so I said, what are the things I would most like to see Boba Fett do? And for me, it was to answer a lot of questions that not only I had, but other fans had. Why does Boba Fett not take off his helmet? What does he look like underneath? What is Boba Fett under the armor? In writing that comic, I answered those questions for me and for other fans. And that then grew and grew and grew. Then they wrote books about the Mandalorians, and then they did a TV show, and then they did a Boba Fett TV show, and now there's a Mandalorian movie, and all of that came out of this interest in what does Boba Fett mean, and I got to write the comic that told what Boba Fett meant. I think as storytellers, whether it's writing, art, film, any kind of the arts, has a responsibility to make the world better by your art. What that can mean sometimes is that people have agendas. And that's okay to have. It's okay to have an agenda. One of my agendas is to accurately reflect the world around me in a racial, gender, and a sexual orientation way. So if I have a crowd scene that I'm asking an artist to draw, I will say, be sure to put in people of color, be sure to put in some fat people, be sure to put in some short people. If I have characters, and I have 5 different characters, at least one of them's going to be gay, and we're going to find that out somehow in the course of the story, because it's important that we reflect accurately the world around us, and we try to reflect a world that we're enriching. Commonly, people will say, I have an idea for this, and I'm thinking about writing it. What I tell them is, then do it. Write it. You have to start somewhere. And you can start somewhere and rewrite it. You can start somewhere and throw it away. You can start somewhere and have it be perfect the first time out. But you have to start. In order to be a writer or a filmmaker, you have to start your work. Once you start your work, you're going to find it easier and easier and easier to explore it and eventually to reach your goal. Is your goal to see it on stage or to see it in a movie theater? Is your goal to see it bound up into a book? You can't reach that goal until you start it.